Board has my interest, so I'll check it. I'm gonna keep you.
We had no sound that whole time.
Sorry, guys. We just found out that we had no sound this whole time.
Wait, do we have sound now?
Now we have sound.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, about this technical issue we had just now. If you're watching, we didn't have any sound. Janet. I'm Richard.
And we're good to go. So, like I mentioned, but you probably didn't hear it in the beginning, stay till the end because we have an awesome interview with Film Commissioner Phil Bradstock. But we're going to be talking about mainstream news right now, and we'll transition into that in a bit. So, stay tuned.
So, basic rundown really quick. Amy Schumer will star and co-write an upcoming Barbie movie for Sony set for 2018. Fox has moved the release date for Alien Covenant up to May 19th. 2017, and has given its old October 6th release date to Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and has also dated 2 upcoming Fox Marvel movies, which are most likely X-Men related. They're not going to be Fantastic Four sequels, much to my chagrin, or maybe it's a better thing we don't get a Fantastic Four sequel. I can't deal with any more
Gotta
heartbreak.
give it a break for a couple years.
I can't deal with any more heartbreak. So it could be Deadpool 2, Deadpool 3, X-Force, New Mutants. The list is endless really at this point. They have a really big roster of characters to draw from the X-Men canon.
Yeah.
You want to take over the next one?
So next is Detective Pikachu.
Yes, Detective Pikachu. Rob Letterman, who directed Goosebumps and Monsters vs. Aliens and Shark Tales, is going to direct the live-action Pokemon movie, Detective Pikachu.
Isn't that so weird to say?
I don't like saying it.
Detective Pikachu. Just let that sit in if you haven't heard that before. It's literally going to be about Pikachu solving stuff, figuring stuff out.
Elementary, my dear Charmander. Not totally on board with this. I've made it clear that I think that if you're going to do a live-action Pokemon movie, you should do a Pokemon movie. This sounds more like a spin-off film that you would do after you get the main series moving. Yeah. But they're doing it for brand recognition because Pikachu is the most recognizable Pokemon in the world. So.
I mean, and even if he is, I feel like you still do like a really good movie. But why Detective Pikachu? Like, is there a reason for this?
Because Nintendo doesn't like me for some reason. The next news we have is The Mummy. We got a brand new poster for The Mummy as well as a teaser for the teaser that comes this Sunday with Sunday Night Football. It's a weird trend they're doing.
Yeah.
Teasers for teasers.
It's 15-second teaser. And, I mean, you don't really see that much.
It's enough to let you know that there's a trailer coming on Sunday, which we will have posted on the website. We'll keep you guys up to date on that. as far as what we see, it looks pretty entertaining. I think the idea of a
Did you like the first Mummy?
No. Wait, do you mean now when you say the first Mummy, do you mean the 30s Mummy or the 90s Mummy?
90s.
No, I didn't like the 90s Mummy, so I'm pretty excited for this one moving
And
forward.
I don't like Tom Cruise, so.
That run though, if anyone can run away from a monster, it's Tom Cruise. He ran away from a sandstorm.
Okay.
So we'll keep you up to date on that, guys. The next one is Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was surprisingly the most controversial film of 2016. I mean, I can't believe we're saying that out loud, but yes. Ghostbusters kind of underperformed at the box office, and critically, it was an okay film critically. Ivan Reitman has said there will be more Ghostbusters films, though. We're not sure if they're going to be sequels to the reboot that just came out, sequels to the original, crossover films, animated films. It's sort of up in the air at this point. I myself personally would like to see a sequel with the Ghostbusters we got. I think they were pretty well on their own, and the biggest thing holding them back was their kind of insistence on staying true to the original film. Now that's out of the way, just let them blaze their own path, because that's how we got the first Ghostbusters 2, which was not good, was they were too slavish to the original, so do something different.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I personally enjoyed it. Like I mentioned when we did a review on it, I haven't seen the original Ghostbusters.
You
so
still
I know.
haven't?
I know I haven't. And so
I know what I'm
this
getting
was
you for
just, like-
Christmas.
but it was funny. I liked, the cast, and I feel like if they're gonna, keep it going, definitely just make the sequel of this reboot with the same, actors. I
Yeah,
feel like,
why spend money to make another Ghostbusters movie if you're just going to reboot it? Like, what you're
and
telling
there's always
me
going to be critics. There's always going to be haters. And so, I don't know. I feel like there's so much hatred.
there was a lot of unwanted and unneeded hatred for
Yeah.
the movie. So hopefully we get a Ghostbusters 2, but if you insist on doing a reboot of Ghostbusters again, Key and Peele, Proton Packs, and Elania and Abby from Broad City, put those four together, I would totally see that movie.
That'd be pretty cool.
The next bit of news is Masters of Sex on Showtime has been canceled.
I know you love this show, right?
I love this show.
I've never seen this show.
It's like one of my favorite shows, and the very fact that they ended it on a point that you could see why they ended it there, but it's almost like they still let story threads there for season 5, and I was so heartbroken when they canceled it because like they already did this to me with Penny Dreadful earlier this year, and now Showtime, the only show they have left that I watch is Ray Donovan, and I'm hoping that they don't cancel Ray Donovan next season because then I need to cancel my Showtime subscription.
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry.
Next is we have some reviews on some trailers that dropped. Only 2 big trailers dropped pretty much over Thanksgiving. One is the trailer for Martin Scorsese's new film Silence, and this looks so good.
Yeah. I never heard anything from it, and then just watching this trailer just like was really interesting, really different. Did not expect, the trailer that I saw, but I'm definitely interested in watching it.
Yeah, and the fact that they were able to get it, like, I knew that Scorsese was cutting it pretty much down to the wire because they wanted a release date in time for the award season,
Yeah.
and they didn't know if they were going to make
And
it.
the cast just looks crazy.
Oh my God, like Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver and Liam Neeson just already have me interested, plus Martin Scorsese, and so far the word of mouth is really good, so
Yeah.
when it comes out, me and Janet will definitely have a review of Silence up.
Yeah.
And the next trailer, and this one really shocked me at least, was Cars 3.
I think it shocked everyone.
It was brutal. It was really brutal.
I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah, it's like they Dark Knighted Cars.
I don't know. Like, is this a kid's movie still?
Well, okay, think of it this way. When Cars came out, it's been 10 years since Cars came out. So by the time the sequel comes out, it'll have been 11 years. So anyone who saw Cars when they were a kid has grown up. Now, I know there are kids that still watch Cars on
Yeah.
DVD and discover it, so
I mean, it's Pixar.
it's Pixar. Pixar's gone pretty dark, though. We all remember Toy
But
Story
I've
3.
never seen anything this dark.
That's true. Like, they made a pretty bold statement. I think this teaser was meant more to people who were like, don't like cars, and there are a lot of people that don't like cars. It was basically meant to say, guys, pay attention to this one. Because if you notice, all the internet talk before Cars 3, before this trailer, was, why are they doing Cars 3? No one wants a Cars 3. Cars 2 was awful. Nobody wants this.
Yeah.
Where's Incredibles 2?
Yeah.
And now it's like, Cars 3 looks pretty dope.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've never hated Cars. I still thought it was better than Brave or The Good Dinosaur, so I'm pretty excited for the sequel. It'll be interesting to see them kind of going back to their roots, kind of I don't want to say grittier story because that's never
It
been.
definitely seems gritty.
It's going to be grittier, but.
It's the fall of, what's his name?
Lightning McQueen.
Lightning McQueen.
Remember the trailer for Dark Knight Rises where it said, the witness the epic conclusion to the Dark Knight legend? Kind of like the epic conclusion to the McQueen legend.
And that is where it ends, hopefully, though.
It's pretty.
No one wants a Cars 4.
We're gonna get Cars 4 as long as there's a Cars Land in Disneyland. We're gonna get more Cars stuff because they need to keep that property alive. But anyway, next up, we have reviews for the movies Moana and Bleed for this. I'll start with Moana because I saw Moana. Janet, you didn't get a chance to see it over Thanksgiving. Short summary, I liked it. I didn't like it as much as some of Disney's newer films like Frozen or Big Hero 6 or Zootopia. But for what it is, the music is great. Like, I'm still humming the soundtrack. It's been a week since I saw it. I'm, like, this close to buying it because I just, like, can't, like, keep listening to samples on iTunes. But it's really good as far as the music goes. The story is your basic Disney structure, and I think it tweaks some elements, especially the Disney formula. Moana doesn't have a love interest, and I think that's pretty refreshing. There's never... It's never boring, for sure. I can say that. Dwayne Johnson, it is stupid how talented and charismatic this guy is. Like, there are people that have no talent or charisma, like myself, and for some reason, they just gave it all to Dwayne Johnson. He can sing. Who knew The Rock could sing?
Oh, my God.
And I
didn't even think about that. Like, I mean, obviously I knew, like, okay, there's going to be music, but I never thought The Rock would have, like, a musical number.
And his is the best one. His is, like, the best one. He gets, like, the Genie song in the movie.
Oh.
And honestly, that's the best way I can compare it. Like, as far as the new Disney Renaissance, Tangled was, like, the Little Mermaid as, like, the announcement that, hey, guys, we're back. Frozen was the Beauty and the Beast saying, like, look how great we can achieve this. And Moana is like the new Aladdin. They guys, we're on top, we're unstoppable. And Dwayne Johnson's character Maui pretty much is the genie of the story. And it's fitting that this is actually directed by the guys that did Aladdin. So it has a lot of those elements into it. Like I said, I think some of the meta humor, some of the wink and jokes to the audience, the fourth wall breaks didn't land as well to me. That's kind of what took me out. But overall, Moana, really good, solid film. Probably not one of Disney's better ones, but it's still rather entertaining. If you got kids, you probably have already taken them to see it. But, even as a date movie, I would say it's a pretty good date movie.
I definitely want to go see it soon.
So yeah, check out Moana, guys. And then, Janet, what movie are you reviewing?
So, a couple weeks ago, I feel like it's 2 weeks ago, I watched Bleed for this, right when it came out. I love boxing movies. I was a huge fan of Creed, Southpaw, Rocky, obviously. And then I was so excited for this. Miles Teller is awesome. I love him. But Bleed for this was really underwhelming. I feel like it had characters that were very stereotypical. There always has to be like this guy that has so much potential, but he has all these fatal flaws. And then, I don't know. I mean, and then the editing was weird. Like they, incorporated real life footage with Miles Teller's footage, and it was like didn't really seem like it needed to be there. There's a lot of issues that I had with it. I can't remember it that well since it was 2 weeks ago. But overall, it, I felt like it could have been a better film. And, obviously in like a sports action film, there's so much potential for like hype and just getting the audience excited. And like soundtrack is so vital in these movies. I felt like the soundtrack and the hype in general was just so underwhelming. It was pretty sad. That's
a bummer because I knew how excited you were for it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of wanted to check it out, and I still might, but.
And like you are obviously in love with like Disney soundtracks.
I am.
Anytime there's like a Disney Pixar movie, anything, you're like soundtrack.
Do you remember? It's funny because the day what was it? The Weeknd's album dropped.
Yeah.
And I was just like, guess what else dropped today? Moana soundtrack. And I was just like, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Like, the Weeknd. No, but like these movies have such great potential for like amazing soundtracks, and like how do you mess that up in like a sports boxing movie? It was so sad for me. But if you guys have checked it out already, let us know what you thought, or if you thought something different about these movies.
So that's a go see for Moana, and what is it for? Believe this? Should you say buy it, rent it, skip it, Redbox it?
Redbox it, probably. I think there was some good scenes, some cool stuff. I mean, the whole concept of just a boxer getting completely thrown off his throne and then having to just rebuild himself is crazy, like while wearing a halo and stuff like that. So it was cool. There's a lot of potential, but it definitely just Redbox it.
And one last thing, guys, before we go into the Arizona film stuff, quick review of the CW crossover event, Heroes vs. Aliens, which was Supergirl, Flash, Green Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow. Guys, it was awesome. That's pretty much all I can say. Like,
That just seems like a dream come true for you.
It was like the Avengers, but like spread out over 4 nights and 3 nights. The Supergirl thing literally was the end of the episode, and they were like, "Oh, let's set this whole thing up." But it was super fun, and it was very comic booky. That's the thing that I just can't explain. I'm afraid. I was always afraid, never be too serious with it. Treat it seriously. But I think what works for the CW shows is that they understand that they're soap operas. And that's what comic books started out as soap operas. So they keep that element. The Flash episode was a good introduction. The Arrow episode was a good, not only 100th episode for Arrow, but a good middle ground for the series. And Legends of Tomorrow just wrapped it up. Obviously, the restrictions of a TV budget made sure the ending action wasn't as epic as you would imagine. But the character stuff was all there, and that's where they put the focus on, was the character interactions, which is what you tune in for to see Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow. So, guys, it was awesome. Hopefully they release it as a box set, because it could be its own little mini movie. And that's pretty much it for that, guys. Now let's move on to the Arizona entertainment stuff. ASU Capstone Showcases tonight, guys. I'll be there. Jan's going to be there. If you're watching this, look for us there. And please go out and support everybody who's...
A lot of awesome movies, a lot of awesome people that are graduating this semester. Definitely want to go support them.
A lot of talent went into these projects, guys. So
I think it's $5 at the door?
Yeah, it's $5 at the door, guys. There's nothing else coming out in theaters. Yeah. You obviously don't need to go see Bleed for this. You can go see this. Next one is the...
Filmstock Film Festival. And actually, a huge highlight, Postmarked will be playing there.
We had Gene Gansel, the director of Postmarked, on here before us. So, guys, Filmstock, check it out. It's running, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
I don't know. I should know. I worked on it.
Yep, that's it. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those are the 3 days. Those are the 3 days of the film festival.
Yeah. And then also Car Dogs, the big news that we were wanting to announce last time. We weren't able to because it wasn't posted by the time we streamed. But the news is that Car Dogs is actually coming to theaters in Phoenix.
Yep, and we also have we did interviews with Jared McDonald-Evoy and Sean Dillingham over the week. Both me and Janet did separate interviews with them. We will have them up on the website.
This weekend.
This weekend, yes. We'll have them up on the website this weekend. Guys, check them out. We got a good entry on the documentary Stingray is what it's called?
Yeah.
And then I did an interview with Sean Dillingham about his projects from his work on Brooklyn Nine-Nine guest spot, which will be next Tuesday. Check that out. And now, guys, the big one, the big news story. This was huge when we broke the news. Arizona. Actually, you know what? Why am I going to explain it? Why don't we just ask the man here who we have today? Guys, please welcome to the show, Phil Bradstock.
Thank you very much.
Phil, can you explain to our audience what exactly your job is?
Sure. So I'm the film commissioner for the city of Phoenix. So what I do is I oversee all the filming and logistics when you are in the city of Phoenix, primarily on city-owned properties like streets, sidewalks. So basically, if you want to run a red light for a scene for a movie, I can make that happen for you. If you need to fire off a gun as part of the scene in downtown Phoenix, I can make that happen for you too. If you want to get into our parks, the airports, I basically coordinate all of that and get the filmmakers the access to the locations that they need, as long as the city owns it.
That's awesome. And it doesn't just cover film. It covers TV, corporate, anything.
That's actually kind of the misconception, is it's called a film office. Just like when artists, musicians drop records, they're not really dropping records anymore. It's more of downloads. And so the film office is a little bit of an archaic term, but we still hold on to it. So really it's morphed into much more multimedia, which is going to span everything from reality TV shows to traditional TV shows, to commercials, to webisodes, to corporate industrials, even to student filmmakers as well. So cover the gamut with all of those.
That's awesome.
So, Phil, we want to talk to you a little bit. We're going to talk to you a little bit about your history before we get into the big stuff. So, can you tell us about how you got into this line of work?
Yeah, actually, I went to Boston College, got a degree in political science, thought I was going to go to law school, and it just so happens that my family were producers in Hollywood, and my cousin called me up, who was the showrunner on a show called Suddenly Susan, and said, do you want to get the writers their lunches? And I thought, well, why not? I'm not doing anything, trying to figure out my life. Went out there and realized that it was very similar to the construction industry, which is actually what my father did. And so I just ended up working on the production side. So I was always behind the camera. I was never in front of the camera. I'm not the creative type, but the logistics behind making TV shows is what I really understood. And so I ended up doing that for 6 years over at Warner Brothers. So I think I did maybe like 7 or 8 different shows while I was there. So it was a lot of fun, but it was all for the major networks. My primary focus was on the multi-camera sitcoms, typically your 3 walls, 4 cameras. My wife, who I met on set, she did the 1 hours like Without a Trace and E-Ring and Commander-in-Chief. Those last 2 didn't really last too long, but that's how I got into the industry.
Nice. And then what brought you out to Arizona?
I actually grew up out here, so this is my home. And my wife and I decided we were going to start a family and didn't want to do it in La La Land. A little too expensive out there. So we moved out here to Phoenix, and I moved here in January of '06, back here, I should say. And it turned out that the lady who had run the film office in Phoenix since 1978 had retired. And they're looking for a new person. And my years of experience in Hollywood plus poli-sci degree, I put in my name in the hat, and they offered me the position.
I was just about to ask you, how did that transition even happen from being, from the studio to obviously this?
It's very different, let me tell you. As a producer, when you wear your producer hat, it's do it now and apologize later. But in government, you can't do that. You have to be much more by the book and by the rules. And so I do as much as I can to work with the filmmakers so that everybody is safe. But really, at the end of the day, what they're doing, running red lights, firing off guns, you can't do that in cities. So my job is to create them a sandbox. And I let them play in the sandbox. And if they need to expand the sandbox, and we hit pause, reset the boundaries, and then go back again. So it definitely is a different type of mentality, but mind you, I only do television. That's all I had ever done. So working on commercials is very different because it's a totally different paced industry. Films is totally different paced industry than television is. So it was a lot of fun. So now I get to work on all type of projects.
Yeah. What are some of the projects you worked on here?
Well, do you want to know the film things?
Let's learn like film and television and commercials. Just like run down some highlighted ones for us.
So Transformers that just shot out here in June. Worked on that since February of last year. It took a couple of months to get it out here. Before that, there was Everything Must Go with Will Ferrell that shot in 2010. We had Take Me Home Tonight with Topher Grace that shot. We had The Kingdom that was out here back in 2006. But really, since the state of Arizona lost its film incentive in December of 2010, we really have not seen those major movies come out here. The Transformers was kind of an anomaly because they actually found through Google Earth a junkyard location north of the Deer Valley Airport that had these like 1950 trucks, 1970 Camaros. And apparently, and you've probably seen the Transformers movies, I actually have not, but I believe the 4th installment ended in a junkyard. Yes. And so when they opened up the 5th installment, they needed to be in a junkyard. And so they found this one, and that's the whole reason that movie came out here. And then to make it more financially sensible to be out here in a state without a film incentive, they added some more days. So they were up in Marble Canyon filming. They shut down the 303 through Governor Ducey's office. He really helped make that happen. And so they shot out there for a week. So really, they were only here for 2 weeks, and then they went to Detroit, where there was an incentive waiting for them, and they shot all their soundstage work there. And then I don't know where they went after that, but I heard they were on 4 different continents. And I believe like Ireland was one of the locations. South Africa was one of the locations as well. So I think that's going to come out in the summer of 2017 or the fall of 2017.
2017. I believe it is June 23rd of 2017. One of the June days.
Okay.
Right before 4th of July weekend. So,
okay.
So how do you feel about, obviously not having that film incentive here in Arizona?
It's interesting because at one point a lot of states had these, over 40 plus states did. Now states are kind of doing away with them or they're reducing them. So really the hotbed location right now for the feature films is Georgia. That's where a lot of the productions are going these days. New Mexico still has a very big program, but they just reduced their cap, I believe, for their incentive. So it's really the major motion pictures are really reliant upon these incentives. So since we haven't had one since 2010, we've really had to basically pivot, like any small business does, to say, okay, well, that's maybe not going to be a reality, so let's not focus our attention on bringing that in. Let's instead focus on the things that don't require an incentive. And commercials are the perfect thing because they happen so quickly that they don't have time to file paperwork, run through the government process. Basically, they're in and out in about a week and a half, and they spend a lot of money. I mean, we just had a commercial about 2 weeks ago, shot out here for 2 days, spent $160,000 in Phoenix. So those are the ones we're doing. So it's kind of like we're hitting a ton of singles right now, rather than going for the grand slams, which are the Transformers.
Mm-hmm. And so the news that broke out yesterday, right?
Yes, it was yesterday. It really was yesterday.
It was. Yep, yesterday morning.
Can you explain to us what that is, what that means?
Sure. So the state of Arizona always traditionally had a film office, state film office. When it actually started, I'm not too sure, but it's been around since I believe the 90s at the early, the latest. And then when the incentive sunset in December of 2010. Basically, the film office kind of went away. It went away a little bit earlier than that, but there really wasn't, the state didn't place as much of a focus on it. It was part of what's called the Department of Commerce, which is a government-funded, state-funded agency. That closed down and became what's called the Arizona Commerce Authority, which is a public-private partnership to recruit businesses into the state of Arizona and help growth in the rural areas with businesses. And so the film office just kind of went away. So since that time, we have not had a state film office. So when productions come into the state of Arizona, could be feature films, and they want to talk to somebody about filming on state lands, tribal lands, ADOT, for example, there's really no centralized agency for them to go to. So the location scouts and managers would have to individually go to every single department to try and talk to them to get a permit, but the people they're talking to aren't film people and they don't quite understand what it is that we as filmmakers need, because it's slightly different than trying to restripe a road or do road construction. It's we need to like shut the whole thing down and blow something up on it. And that just kind of really was very difficult. So now the state film office is going to come in, and one of the things that hopefully they'll be able to do is to kind of be the go-to person so that there's only one point of contact for filmmakers to represent the entire state of Arizona. But then also it promotes Arizona, because I am only the city of Phoenix, so I'm not out trying to promote the state of Arizona. I'm basically doing Phoenix and Greater Phoenix. My counterpart, Shelley Hall, who runs the Tucson Film Office, she's more concerned with getting the projects down to Tucson, and we work really well together. And if there's a project that needs something, we send them to the right geographical area. But really, now we've got a promoter to go out there, and this is a funded office, and so part of it is promotions. It is going to the trade shows. In fact, on Saturday, the new film commissioner, his name is Matthew Earl Jones, who is related to James Earl Jones. He is the one who is going to be going to London to lead an Arizona contingency to try and introduce Arizona to the international market to get more of those projects here into Arizona. So that it happens next week for 2 days. So for better or worse, Matthew, he's pretty much been in the office for 2 days, and then he goes to London, and then he doesn't get back till next Friday, and see how he does with the jet lag.
That's awesome. So even without the incentive, do you see a lot of productions coming to Arizona
Oh,
now?
yeah, a ton. Yeah, there really is. And when you look at the commercial world, like I say, we had to pivot and realize that that's what we could go after. From October to April, we get hammered with projects out here in this market. Yeah. And what you basically find is the companies have their marketing budgets, and typically they go on a fiscal year, usually a calendar fiscal year, and they need to use up what they have left. So they're gonna start shooting in October, November, December. And they want to go to a place with predictable weather. And we have very predictable weather here in Phoenix. Then come January 1st, all the new fiscal budgets for all these major corporations open up again, and they need to do their spring rollouts. They need to do their summer rollouts. So it could be lawn fertilizer. It could be the things, outdoor activities, patio furniture, bikinis for catalogs. And you can't do that in cold weather climates. So we're 70 degrees and blue skies typically in the Phoenix marketplace. And we also are able to replicate anywhere USA. So when you do these commercials and you broadcast them in Ohio, you can't have saguaro cactuses because people aren't going to understand it. And they need to be able to relate to the commercial and therefore the product. So that's why locations like Arcadia, Rancho Solano get heavily filmed during that time frame. Then you have spring training that happens, and all the sports apparel companies come out here because all of their clients are now on these baseball teams. Throughout the year, they're scattered all over the country. Then when they leave, they go back to the Dominican Republic, to New Jersey, to wherever they're actually from. Now, all those A-list celebrities or athletes, half of them basically are right here in the Phoenix market. So it's a great way for the Under Armours, the Nikes, the Adidases of the world to get their contract players together to do these commercials, so they bring them out here. So we see a ton of work in March. And then April, it tends to die off a little bit. And then once the summer hits, the commercial world's looking for their fall and winter. Totally can't do that when it's 110 out here. So we lose it. So we don't see that business, but we see much more like regional. Like recently, if you look on local TV, you see the Honda spots, and all the Honda spots were shot here in Phoenix, and it has a very specific Phoenix vibe to it, and because it's only meant for our market. Just like when you watch a Jeep commercial of a Jeep plowing through snow in Minnesota, and it's 90 degrees out in Phoenix, you don't really relate to that product as well. So we're starting to see a trend towards more regional advertising spots as well.
That's awesome.
That's great. Janet did? I would say. He looked at me like I
thought you had a question.
would say he looked at me like you're saying like, why are you looking at me with the Honda thing? But so what we wanted to ask you now is, as far as like this goes into effect because you said he's going to meet. He's going to London on Sunday or
Saturday, yeah. The
Saturday.
event's on Tuesday and Wednesday of
events
next
on
week.
Tuesday and Wednesday. So and it's called Studio 48 is what.
Correct.
And it's so when should we start seeing some of this take effect? Like.
Well, it's going to take a little while. I mean, Matthew literally just signed his contract yesterday.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, on Wednesday.
He hasn't even unpacked his desk
No, it's
yet.
yesterday. No, he actually hasn't. And they're moving the ACA to a new building next Friday. So I said, well, at least you don't have a lot to move. So you're lucky in that respect. But, I think that really once he gets out there, and he actually, because I actually had lunch with him just today, and we talked about his background. And I have known him for a while, but I've never really talked to him. But he actually comes from the commercial world. And a lot of his connections are in the advertising, the Madison Avenue type people. So I really think that he's going to start working the phones. And he's already started to reach out to people as well. So I do think we will start to see, and specifically right now is the right time because once January hits, like this is when it's all going to happen.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to see what it will be. And I know it's going to be nothing but a positive benefit for us. And if those movies come along, and they need to film on the state lands. I mean, we're not going to say no to a Transformer, but we're just not maybe necessarily going to put as much effort into marketing for one of those versus the commercials, which we know are going to come in. And they actually spend a tremendous amount of money and have a real solid impact on our local economies.
Yeah, I know a lot of graduates that consistently work on commercials and corporates. And
reality
TV shows and stuff like that.
Exactly, and that's the thing too is I think that a lot of people go to film school and they want to be the next Quentin Tarantino or whatever, whoever the big director is. But in reality, you're just a little fish in a really big pool when you get out there. I mean, you have to realize that all the ASU graduates and all the U of A graduates and all the Oregon State and Portland universities, I mean, all over the country, they all graduate, and what do? Going to go to Hollywood. So now you have this influx of people going into a system that only has a capacity to take in so many. So that's why you end up at Starbucks and you end up at the chain restaurants that are there in the marketplace, and you end up as a security guard on the lot because even though you have this degree and you may have won, let's say, the capstone project, you're just one of many that's out there. So really to stay in your local market, you can actually make money doing that because now you're working in Arizona, which is non-union. And do remember that these movies that you all talked about, they're all union. So unless you're in that union, you can't even work on those movies. But out here, you can gain the experience and you can actually make a decent amount of a living here so you can then pay off your student loans, which I'm sure is a big pressing matter. Yeah, racking up, get the car payments going. Maybe you got a mortgage or something. But you can actually make a very good life for yourself out here in the Phoenix market.
But do you see now with Studio 48, right?
Yep, Studio 48, State 48, Studio 48.
Yeah, that's good. Do you see now with that obviously going forward that maybe there will be film incentive in the future?
We really don't. That's really up to the local filmmakers. If the film community wants to come together, which they have in the past, to try and pass legislation, which involves the whole thing. I'm not sure how. Want to get into how a bill is passed, you can research that online. But it's really up to the stakeholders to come together and to pass something. And if they do put something together and the legislature does pass it and it is signed by the governor eventually, then it's something that I'm sure that the state film office would have some sort of overseeing of that program. But really, as government agencies, we're not the ones trying to create an incentive. It's really up to the people to be the ones that do that. And that's actually what's happened the past several years. This has been probably I think this is the first year in about 5 years where an incentive bill has not been floated before the legislature. But it's not coming from government. It's the people that are doing it. And they need to go through the legislature and go through the proper process.
My question is, I think this is the last question I have, was you were talking about obviously more what focus will be put on commercials and whatnot. And so that means we'll see more work for people that are in Arizona because they're not going to fly people out. Will we see more work for like people in Arizona or are we going to be flying people out from
No,
areas?
Generally I will say that on the commercial projects, it's the locals that get the jobs. You're going to get the ad agency and you're going to maybe get the director from Los Angeles and they may have their DP. But generally everybody else that's going to fill out the ranks on the crew is going to be local. And also realize too that this is a right to work state. So this is not a union state. So most of these commercials that get shot are non-union. So you're able to get onto set. You're able to touch the camera. Like I remember, just to give you an example of how strong unions can be, when I was on a set of a show called Nikki, which was on the WB, the construction crew that night had built the walls and everything, and there was this pile of dust. And I went over to the craft service guy, Brett, and I said, "Hey, Brett, where's your broom and pan?" And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I was just going to clean that up for you." And he said, "Brother, your heart's in the right place, but I have to do that job." And I thought, really? I have a college degree and I can't even sweep up sawdust. But that's how the unions work. And in fact, you can't even touch a camera. You can't even carry the camera off the transport truck. You can't even drive the stuff around unless you're part of the specific union, and they all have specific job duties about what they can do. So really, your only position is a production assistant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it when you get to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And you don't get paid a lot of money. It's basically minimum wage because, again, every college graduate moves there. So they can make the lowest price and it saves them money.
I think it was funny that you said, like, I have a college degree and I can't sweep up this dust. Most people are like, I have a college degree and I'm sweeping up this dust. Most people are the opposite.
It really is. I mean, and I tried, and and I got in with the crews, and I'd go and hang the backings. I'd go up high in the rafters, and I'd help out the grips just because I got to know them. They liked me, and that was how I got to get experience on all the different trades that were there to see what it was I liked. And I ended up liking the line producer track more than anything. It's just, again, it runs into the fact that to become a UPM, which was after a production coordinator, which is what I was, you have to be in the Directors Guild of America. But again, the Directors Guild of America, you have to work X amount of days. I can't remember what it is. In a non-union show, I think that's what it is. I can't remember. Or go into the DGA trainee program, and then that makes you a second AD where you're running background. And I'm more of a math mind. I like Excel spreadsheets. I like figuring out the money. How much do these lights cost? How many people do you need? That's what I was into, and it was just like not a clear track record. So that's why I left.
So one last question. Obviously, you have a lot of experience with the Arizona film community. As a maybe Scottsdale Community College or ASU graduate in the film program, what advice do you have for them getting started in the industry here?
Network. You got to network, and you got to get out and meet people, and you got to meet the local production companies that are currently out here, because they're the ones that are going to be hiring you. They're the ones that are going out right now, and they're talking to the ad agencies, and they're getting the commercials, and they're dealing with the other production companies as well that are getting the large commercials. And so you need to attach yourself to one of the local producers so that when they get that job, you are what I call the usual suspect. You're one of their first calls, and that's how you get into the local scene. But you really need to be pressing. Don't just send an email and walk away and hope for the best. Like, physically go knock on their door and say, "Hey, I'm here," because they're going to want to look at you. They're going to want to say, "Hey, is this person presentable? Do I feel confident?" And when I've got my client paying me tons of money to have this particular individual go out there. So if you look decent, it's okay to have the spacers and the mohawk and stuff. Just don't look ratty, look presentable. And then I think you can definitely get a job very easily out here, especially this time of year.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Phil, for coming on. We really
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much.
Hey, you're very welcome.
I think this is you're not only our biggest guest star, but probably the most timely we've had, because of the fact that this whole film, this film thing got announced yesterday, and now we can have you here to talk about it. I think you cleared up a lot of things for not just myself and Janet, but also anyone who's watching.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
All right, guys. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions for us about this, let us know in the comments below. If you have anything to say about our other reviews or other news, let us know. Make sure to check us out every Friday at 4 p.m. for another live stream.
Yep. And Janet, where can they follow you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at JanetHallis93 or at myroadtohollywood.com.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at rlfink94. Guys, thank you for watching and staying within the frame.